Welcome back. Here on the Senior Network, we were discussing planning, and I was curious, Jay, I wanted to kind of find out from an estate planning standpoint, the process of what someone needs to do when they start thinking about that.
Well, thanks for asking that, Greg. We were talking earlier about end-of-life care in particular, and people really physically changing and sometimes mentally changing during the end of their life.
Sure.
And during that period, there's certainly opportunities to do some significant planning with regard to their estate. I like to think of it as legacy planning, because really when it comes down to it, we're all going to pass away at some time. And when we leave this earth, then we want to make sure whoever's left behind that we've planned appropriately for them to be taken care of. Now, during the time that hospice or home care is helping out with the home, frequently people certainly have their mental faculties and they're able to do some additional planning.
Sure.
And so it's important to do that. And one of the things that I find that's the most important is gathering information. While someone is living, they're a bank of information. I think we've probably all experienced, I have myself, that family members have said, hey, everything's in this cabinet here.
Or the safe. Yeah.
Open up this safe and you'll find my life right here. Everything will be good. And you open up that safe or that cabinet and oh my gosh, what does it all mean? There's lots of papers there, but can you make heads or tails out of it? Each of us have a piece of paper somewhere that we can look at and it makes all the sense in the world to us. But if you look at someone else's piece of paper, you say, wow, what does this mean? You really don't understand it sometimes. Sure. An example being a list of real estate. Well, do you own this real estate? Do you rent this real estate? What exactly is this? And so identifying that information prior to someone's disability and certainly their death is extraordinarily important. Another thing that I find is really important is not only gathering the information and understanding it, but also making sure that the titling is appropriate for disability or death. So during this period when physically and mentally people are changing, we want to make sure that when someone else is managing that property, that it's titled properly prior to disability or death. And that's extraordinarily important. And the one thing that I would say that would be the overarching rule is hire a good estate planning attorney that is paying attention to that.
Sure.
The sad reality is I frequently see estate plans, documents, that look excellent. They may be perfect, but if the property is not titled properly, then the plan is worthless. It may be the worst plan they could ever have because it means nothing if the property is not properly titled. And the big mistake I see frequently is people attempt to do this on their own. And when they do it, sometimes the mistakes of mistitling things can really cause problems into the future. So that's some things that I would focus in on is gathering information, understanding that information, and making sure the titling is properly done, and an estate planning attorney can help with that.
And I'm hearing you say it's obviously better to come sooner than later. And start the planning process. Now, being in home care and working in the world that we do, a lot of times we run across a power of attorney or a medical power of attorney. Tell us a little bit about, because that seems to be confusing to a lot of family members when I go in and speak with them.
And I'm glad you asked that because, ironically enough, January 1st of next year, of 2017, the laws in South Carolina with regard to powers of attorney are changing dramatically. I started, along with several other attorneys in the state of South Carolina, in 2008 to revise our probate code and trust code and also our power of attorney laws. The power of attorney law will change January of next year and is significant. So if someone has a power of attorney already, they may want to check with their estate planning attorney to make sure that it's still exactly the way they want it in January of next year. And secondly, I would say if they don't have one, they should get one, and they should make sure they ask the attorney, is this going to comport with the law that's going to take effect next year? So certainly I would ask an estate planning attorney about any power of attorney that any one of you would see, because in South Carolina the rules are a little bit different than in any other state, as they would be in any other state. And one of the things that we find frequently is people move here from out of state. That's common. They laugh about Hilton Head Island being a suburb of Ohio, I believe. So we frequently see Ohio or Pennsylvania or New Jersey or New York documents here. And if they come down here with those powers of attorney, frankly, the validity is in question. And frequently, the document refers to the laws of the state where they came from. Well, that causes some problems. One is, do you really want to hire 2 attorneys to interpret the document, one in the state where you came from, and 2, do you want to hire one in South Carolina, because if there's any conflict of laws between the 2 states, then you're going to have an issue there. The one thing that is not changing with regard to South Carolina law is, if someone does become disabled and their power of attorney is not recorded at the Register of Deeds, it's no longer effective. So it's extraordinarily important to make sure that that document is recorded properly, and an estate planning attorney should be able to assist with that. So from the perspective of a business owner, they need to be careful because they may be relying on a document that is not effective in South Carolina.
Correct.
So that's important. That's a really good question. What you asked is, when you see that, you need to reach out as a business owner to an estate planning attorney and make sure that's evaluated to make sure that it's appropriate. And if it's not that hard to get it fixed, but you need to make sure that you're relying on somebody that knows what they're doing.
Well, Jay, that's great information. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank you all for joining us today, and thank all of you for joining us here on the Senior Network, where senior care experts come together. See you the next time.